On June 18, 2018, XXXTentacion was killed outside a Florida motorcycle dealership in broad daylight. But what the news never told you is this: a video game kept him awake all night, a bank refused to give him the money he asked for, and his mother turned down one final phone call 30 minutes before the shooting. Each one of those moments could have unfolded differently. Together, they became some of the most haunting what-ifs surrounding his final day. This is the hour-by-hour account of the 24 hours that led a 20-year-old man who had just found the biggest reason of his life to stay alive directly into the path of four men who were only there to buy a mask. Before the final 24 hours begin, you need to understand who Jahseh Onfroy actually was in June 2018, because the version of XXXTentacion that walked into Riva Motorsports that afternoon was not the person most people thought they knew. Born January 23, 1998 in Plantation, Florida. Father absent, incarcerated for most of Jahseh's childhood. Mother struggling financially. Shuffled between relatives. No stable home. Just a kid absorbing abandonment and turning it into something the world had never heard before. He found music inside a juvenile detention center. Met ski mask the slump god through concrete walls and shared pain. Recorded on broken equipment because real studios were not an option. And when he uploaded Look At Me on SoundCloud in 2015, the internet stopped because this was not polished, this was not calculated. This was a young man screaming every dark corner of his mind directly into a microphone. The distorted bass, the raw vocals, something the algorithm was not built to predict.
My previous friends and I just would feel alone, and I'm in a position now where I was friends with a lot of people and I kind of felt abandoned. I've seen people choose material items over me. I've seen people choose status quo over me.
That feeling of being abandoned by the people closest to you is what millions heard in his music. They did not just casually listen to X. They felt like his music understood parts of them they could not explain to anyone else. By 2018, his second studio album, ? had debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. At just 20 years old, he had become one of the most recognizable young artists on the planet. And in the final weeks of his life, something inside him was quietly changing. 30 days before his death, Jahseh received news that rewired everything. His girlfriend Jahseh Sanchez was pregnant. The boy who grew up without a father was now preparing to become one. He chose his son's name 2 weeks before he died, Jahseh, a different state of thought. The anger that had defined so much of his music began to dissolve. He launched the Helping Hand Challenge, visited foster homes and orphanages across Miami, donated clothes, toys, and electronics to children growing up the way he had grown up. The same kid who had been written off as a lost cause was trying to give other children the childhood he never got. And in late May 2018, while still under house arrest facing 15 felony charges, he secretly signed a $10 million deal with Empire Distribution. $10 million, plans for a charity foundation written in private journals, a man standing at the edge of something completely new. A man who had just found a reason to live, with no idea the clock was already running. For 48 hours leading into June 18th, Jahseh did not sleep, not because of anxiety, not because of legal pressure, because of League of Legends. He was locked into the game with close friends, pulling an all-nighter that stretched through the night and deep into early morning. Around 8 a.m., roughly 90 minutes after finally shutting off the screen, he walked into his home studio one last time. 7 hours before he died, Jahseh was still adjusting the final production layout on a track called Chase, glass shards, still moving elements around, still listening back, still creating. The last piece of music he would ever touch sat on a studio computer in a Florida home while 4 men across the city were waking up with a plan that had nothing to do with him. But the all-nighter had already set something in motion. Because he overslept, he was supposed to take Genesis to a routine pregnancy checkup that morning. Missing that appointment pushed everything back. His entire afternoon shifted forward by hours. And that shift, measured not in hours but in minutes, would place him at Riva Motorsports at the precise moment 4 men were still in the parking lot deciding whether to make their move. One sleepless night, one missed morning, and without anyone realizing it, the course of that day had already begun to change. But the night before was only the first delay. What happened at 3:11 p.m. carried its own weight entirely. Minutes before leaving for the bank, Jahseh made a FaceTime call to his mother, Cleopatra Bernard. He asked her to come with him. Just ride along to the dealership. She stayed home to look after Genesis, who wasn't feeling well that afternoon. The call ended. Jahseh left with Leonard Kerr, and without anyone realizing it, another small moment became part of the chain of events that followed. He drove to Bank of America, And this is where the story carries a detail most people covering this case have never mentioned. What the public record shows is that XXXTentacion withdrew $50,000 that afternoon. What it does not show is what he actually asked for. Jahseh requested $250,000 in cash. Bank of America did not have that amount available in the vault. After the verification process, they handed over the only amount they could provide. $50,000, placed into a Louis Vuitton bag. Had the bank been able to provide the full amount, the withdrawal likely would have taken longer. What is certain is that Jahseh arrived at Riva Motorsports while those 4 men were still there. And from that moment on, everything unfolded in a matter of seconds. The bank teller who processed his withdrawal later said he seemed happy. The surveillance footage from the counter shows a young man moving through what looked like a completely ordinary errand. No tension visible. Nothing in his expression that suggested this was anything other than a Monday afternoon. He got back into the BMW i8, drove to Riva Motorsports in Deerfield Beach, Florida, and everything that had been quietly assembling throughout the day arrived at the same address at the same time. Those 4 men had not woken up that morning with Jahseh's name in their plans. That is the detail that makes this story so difficult to sit with. Dedrick Williams organized the operation and drove the rented Dodge Journey SUV. Michael Boatwright was the primary shooter. Trayvon Newsom served as the second armed gunman. Robert Allen stayed in the vehicle as lookout. According to court testimony, the day before, June 17th, the group had formed a plan. Rent a vehicle, use it to find robbery targets. By June 18th, the mission was already moving. They were driving through South Florida looking for an opportunity. The only reason they stopped at Riva Motorsports was because Dedrick Williams needed a mask. If you are planning robberies, covering your face is standard preparation. So they pulled in. Williams and Robert Allen walked inside to pick one up. And while they were inside, Williams looked to his left. XXXTentacion was standing there. They confirmed it was him, purchased the mask, walked past Jahseh one more time on the way out, and went back to the SUV. And this is the moment where everything could have stopped. They could have bought the mask and left. Could have decided that robbing a globally recognized artist in broad daylight outside a business covered in cameras was too significant a risk. Could have looked at the situation and decided it was not worth it. They sat in the SUV, and they waited. Inside the dealership, Jahseh was looking at a motorcycle, speaking with an employee, completely unaware that outside in a rented SUV, 4 men were watching the entrance and deciding what came next. He was not the type to move through the world looking over his shoulder. He still lived in the same state he grew up in, still drove the BMW i8 he had posted about online, a symbol of what he had built from nothing. His friend Leonard Kerr was with him. And when they walked out and got back into the car, the afternoon still looked entirely ordinary from the outside. Then the Dodge Journey pulled directly in front of the BMW and blocked it. Within seconds, 2 masked men moved toward the driver's side. Michael Boatwright approached the window. Trayvon Newsom positioned alongside. A gun pointed at Leonard Kerr from the passenger side. Stay in the car. According to Kerr's testimony, one of the men was demanding Jahseh's chain. And what Leonard heard from the driver's seat in those final moments were 3 words from Jahseh. What's this for? He did not know what was happening, was not in a planned confrontation, was not expecting any of this. Still sitting in his car outside a motorcycle dealership, trying to understand why armed men were suddenly at his window. A struggle broke out at the driver's side. They were reaching for the Louis Vuitton bag. Leonard Kerr made a decision. If he ran, he could be shot, but he could survive. If he stayed, he did not know what would happen. He pushed open the passenger door and ran. When he looked back, he saw the gun pointed at Jahseh. Then he heard the shots. The bag was taken. The men returned to the SUV, and the SUV drove away. Jahseh Onfroy was pronounced dead shortly after. He was 20 years old.
For a killer in South Florida after an up-and-coming rapper is shot dead, 20-year-old XXXTentacion killed in an apparent robbery. Police say the artist, whose real name is Jahseh Onfroy, was leaving a Broward County motorcycle shop yesterday when he was shot by 2 men who ran up to his car. He was rushed to a hospital but did not make it. Onfroy's death comes just weeks after he earned his first #1 album, which debuted March 31st.
The investigation moved faster than the 4 men anticipated. And the reason it moved so fast was because of how carelessly they operated at every single step. Dedrick Williams had purchased the mask at the register using his personal debit card, his real name, tied to the transaction. Authorities traced it to him within days. Cell phone forensics showed that all 4 devices were pinging off the same tower outside Riva Motorsports during the exact minutes of the robbery. Their locations were not a theory, they were documented. And then, hours after Jahseh was killed, several members of the group recorded videos, laughing, dancing, throwing stolen $100 bills at the camera. Those videos were seized during raids, and they made a defense nearly impossible to build. Dedrick Williams was arrested 2 days after the murder. Michael Boatwright taken into custody weeks later, initially on an unrelated charge before being connected to the case. Robert Allen found in Georgia. Trayvon Newsome turned himself in through his attorney in August 2018. All 4 in custody within months because of a debit card, a cell tower, and a decision to film themselves with the stolen money. Robert Allen made a calculation. He took a plea deal and agreed to testify for the prosecution. In court, he described the day from the inside, the plan, the mask, spotting the BMW, confirming it was Jahseh, waiting, and watching Michael Boatwright fire the shots. The defense challenged his credibility immediately, pointing out that Allen had significant personal incentive to shift blame. But his account did not stand alone. It aligned with the surveillance footage frame by frame. It aligned with the cell phone data. It aligned with Leonard Kerr's testimony. And it aligned with the videos taken hours after the shooting. In March 2023, after 5 years, the jury delivered its verdict. Michael Boatwright, guilty. 2 consecutive life sentences, plus 30 additional years. Trayvon Newsome, guilty. Life imprisonment without parole. Dedrick Williams, guilty. Life imprisonment without parole. Robert Allen, 7 years with credit for time already served, followed by 20 years of probation. He will walk out. The 3 others will not. 4 men needed a mask. A young artist needed a motorcycle. And everything in between. A video game, a phone call, a bank without enough cash, built the exact corridor that brought them to the same parking lot at the same moment. Jahseh Onfroy signed a $10 million deal and planned a charity foundation, chose a name for his unborn son, finished one last song in the early hours of his final morning, made a phone call to his mother asking her to come with him. None of it was enough to stop the chain of events that had already begun earlier that day. His son Gekume is growing up now, looking at photographs, listening to a catalog his father finished building before he ever got to hold him. And every year, millions of people stream music made by a 20-year-old who was still adjusting drum patterns on a song the world would not hear until after he was gone. The voice went silent outside a motorcycle dealership on a Monday afternoon in June. But the music, and the son who carries his name, make sure it never fully disappears. If this story hit different for you, I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into stories that the news never told the full version of, subscribe. Because there is always more beneath the surface than the headline shows.